The thing that motivates me is something that's intrinsically mine. It's not based on everybody else and what other people give me. It's within me. And that is a sense of making a difference. So the point of what I was trying to say is that for me, the thing that inspires me and the thing that I look for in leaving a legacy is to make a difference with people. But that belongs to me. It's the same as motivation. It's from within you. It's not, all the external factors can help you and can certainly inspire you and motivate you to do it better, but it's got to be inside. So for me, the art of giving is all about making a difference, and sometimes we call that mentorship. And mentorship is one way in which to do that. And it's awesome to see so many women in the room this year. It's just growing, and tribute to you and the work that you're doing, Berenice. Honestly, it's not easy, and it's certainly not easy working with volunteers, purely because, and Michelle from our days in BWA as well, is volunteers are always really gracious to come on board with their time, but it truly is your time. And there's so much give that has to come from that, and it's a willingness. And the willingness is actually what manifests in the outcome, because you can volunteer and then just be too busy. But a lot of volunteers that are, yes, please, I'm there, and then, sorry, I can't do anything, I'm just too busy. And we always used to say at BWA that volunteer is the same commitment as a full-time job, you just don't get paid. It's not a hobby. And that's what you sign up for when you sign up to mentor people, is truly to make a difference in their lives. And you can't do that if your diary doesn't allow for time and the mental space and capacity to actually be giving. So leaving a legacy and looking at the next generation. I read a book one time, and it is called The Invitation by Orion Mountain Dreamer. Quite an exquisite book. I read it the first time, and it didn't penetrate with me. I read it again, and it was the most profound book I ever read, and I took it to my book club. And you'll remember...
I wasn't there yet.
You weren't there yet, okay. And my book club in those days looked at me, one of them read it, looked at me and said, what rubbish is this? I think it's the kind of book that you've got to be in the right place to read.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yes.
Okay, so
And
you know what I'm talking... Sorry?
And the dance.
And the dance, yes, she's written a couple, that's right. But this particular one is an invitation to live your life. And it's an incredible invitation. So I want to give you another invitation to consciously leave a legacy and to start working on that and use this as your foundation of which to start building your legacy that you leave behind to the next generation and to those that follow beyond. Interestingly, it seems to be that halfway through our lives, which I seem to be at, we start assessing our lives. And we start thinking about what's it all about. Why are we doing this? Is life just about routine? Is it just about getting up, working, paying the bills, going to sleep, fetching children, doing this, doing that? And this is what they often call the midlife crises. And I think it's not really a crisis. For me, it's almost it's an awakening. It's a beautiful moment to actually say that life has more meaning. And it's at that point that's very often we want to get to a point of saying, I want to give back. I want to do more. I want to give something that is truly way beyond just a donation somewhere or fetching and carrying people's kids. And they say that it happens in the late 40s, early 50s. But the question is, why do we have to wait until then? Why don't we do it earlier? Because I would love to have the energy that I had in my 30s to be able to do what I want to do now in my late 40s. But it's just not there. So the consequence to doing it alone, however, and this is why groups like this are so prevalent and so important. Alone is quite honestly, it's merely a drop. When you do it as part of something that's bigger than you, the impact and what you can gain from it as well as to give to it is just so much bigger than who you are and what you're able to do. So there's a beautiful saying, it says you can't lead anyone else further than you've gone yourself. And that's a true statement. And often we think, well, we're at the top of our game. And then you sit and you chat to somebody in this room and you go, wow, I would love to spend more time in your company, because it's not a skill that you're looking for from them. It's a conversation. It's a life experience. It's a how you dealt with. It's an emotional quotient aspect that you're looking for, way beyond just skills and talent at this stage of our lives. And that's the very thing that people are looking at, your mentees are looking at from you. They're looking at that life experience, because it's not about your qualification to say that I've studied this. It's about your life to say, I've lived this. Because when you can truly say you've lived something, man, it resonates with people so much more. So in terms of making a difference, and I've had this quandary about how do I make an impactful difference, because everything I do just seems to not be significant enough. And I've come to realize there is no such thing as a small difference. And it is the Mother Teresa saying that every little ripple creates the wave. And it's, if you can just make the ripples and just keep cognizant of that and keep plugging away, they will come. It will spread. There's no doubt about it. Mentorship is really about someone whose hindsight can become your foresight. And I just wish I had more people with more hindsight so that I can have more foresight as I move forward. Because I promise you, people that have been there, done it, learned lessons, you've experienced it with people you've sat with, whether it be a friend, whether it be the mentee you're working with, whether it be a colleague you're sitting with right now, where they just say something to you and you think, if only I'd known that. If only I'd known that, the time and the pain it would have saved. So that's really what it is. But the world confuses us, because it doesn't really measure how many people give back. It measures success very, very differently. It measures success based on the wealth of Bill Gates, the physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger, or the lady equivalent, the intelligence of Albert Einstein, the athletic ability of Michael Jordan, the business prowess, or not so much of Donald Trump right now, the social grace and poise of Jackie Kennedy, the imagination of Walt Disney, and the heart of Mother Teresa. I mean, come on, guys. That's what the world says success is. And at the end of the day, a massive, massive bank balance of Bill Gates. That's not success. And I think that's why people get to this stage of life and start questioning, why am I here? Because even if your bank is overflowing with money, it doesn't mean that you feel fulfilled with a sense of purpose. And that's really where mentorship comes in. And then we've got to look at the whole life. And you know, when you're working with your mentees, you'll often find that, okay, we're working on this specific area, and suddenly the conversation will go into something completely different. Well, that's because when you're mentoring somebody, they don't bring a portion of themselves to the table, and neither they should. Because that portion of themselves that they bring to the table is influenced by a whole lot of other things that are going on in their life at that particular time. And it's that full conversation that you're dealing with. Even though the focus may be in one area, you've got to know what is influencing that area to be able to, one, have empathy for what else is going on in their lives, and not just say, okay, well, I'm your mentor, come on, you need to do this, do that, do this. And two, to be able to guide them perhaps in other areas, or put them in touch with people who can guide them in other areas. But it's at least to have context for the bigger picture of what's going on in their life. If somebody had to say to me today, how's it going at work right now? Well, at work it's fine. But how am I doing at work right now is dependent on what's happening in my home, is dependent on how my health is feeling, is dependent on my mood, my emotional status, and a whole load of other things. It's a very different question. When you're mentoring, you've got to look at that fact as well and think about everything that's going on in the person's life. Doesn't mean being the therapist, just by the way. Not at all. You don't want to go there. It's for context purposes only. It's not a whinging and a let's hear all your woes and your boyfriend troubles at all. Okay. But it is about taking time to look at, and when you look at your own life and you say, how much can I give? You've got to take it into context where most of your day is spent working or doing some form of something between 8 and 5. Thereafter, there's a lot of it that is about family, etc. What is left? And how much are you prepared and willing and able to truly give away? And only then, once you've assessed that, make the commitment. The greatest good you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own. It's about asking the right questions and not necessarily knowing any of the answers, never mind all of the answers. Mentoring is about asking the right questions, full stop. It really, really is. If you look at some of the role models that we play with in life today, those are two of mine. There's another one that's coming up shortly. And I think they were wonderful. And one might say, yes, but they're very altruistic and they used to give a lot in their time and everything else. But goodness me, the future queen the future queen didn't have enough time, excuse me, she made the time. Mother Teresa, well, that's not, she's philanthropic and all the rest of it, but she makes the time. She chooses to do that kind of thing in amidst everything else that's going on. And I just think these are, that's not only those type of people. There are business folk that are that way inclined as well. these people inspire and do good for others. They use their money wisely to be able to grow other people, but they also use their time and their minds. And of course, my total icon, I just think there's no better way to mentor somebody than to guide them through a period of hatred to come out with what he came out with in our country and inspire us. But today, the problem is that our role models look like that. And I say this not because I think it. It's because I actually did some workshops with some grade 12s 2 years ago. And I asked them to cut out or to bring pictures of their role models. Not one of them brought their Graham. Not one of them brought their parents. Not one of them brought any of the ones I've just spoken about. They all brought this. And when I questioned, are you sure? They all said, oh no, and Mandela. Because that was the right thing to say. You know. But actually, our future society is bred by celebrity status. They're motivated by celebrity status, not role models. Our government has no more role models. Our businesses are showing the lack of role models because that's what we're reading in the papers today. So you and I are our role models for our next generation. The work that you are doing through this program is being a role model to somebody. It's saying, yes, stuff happens out there. But this isn't about celebrities. This is about you and me, just normal human beings, trying our best to help and work and guide with each other. So it's about teaching the next generation. And it's not always just wisdom that comes with it, with age. Ordinary people see opportunities too. I'm not sure, some of you may have remembered this from last time, but I want to share it again. Ryan's Well is an incredible story. This kid is now, I think he's 19. But at the time, this young boy had, they did a project at school where they had to take on some form of place that needed help and find some charity or something like that. And what he did was he realized that in Africa there was not enough water. There was a shortage. So he spoke to his mom and obviously rallied family and other members around. Okay? And at a very, very young age, he realized that in North America, people had 400 liters per person per day. In Africa, they were working off 10 liters per person per day. And he knew that that was just strange. He was 6, by the way. I forgot to mention that. 6. So at 6 years old, what he did is he took his pocket money, and it's on YouTube, and he put it into a little bucky that he put onto the top of the fridge, and he put all his pocket money back in there. He'd take some for sweets and put the rest in there. And his mother obviously engaged with him and was proactively doing this. But let me tell you that most 6-year-olds, even if their mother told them to put their money, they would say no. Okay. So he obviously had the will to do it. At 6 years old, he created his first well. And it was a water well. $70. He had the willingness to ask and realize that he needed help from others. Today, and this is 2 years ago, 365 wells, 14 African countries, bringing water to over 531,000 people because of one 6-year-old boy that saw a vision. I think he's 19 at the moment, okay? And what you'll see is that he still goes on excursions throughout Africa, and he's still building more and more wells. Because he still says it's still a problem. So he's not giving up. And I just think, how are we cultivating our next generation to think like this? What are we doing with our own children in our homes to make them think like this? Who's got teenagers? If you've got the answers, please help me. But it is an illustration of the power of one person. The power of one person who says, I've got an idea and no, it's not too big. I'm going to speak to other people. And I'm going to allow them to help me, and we're going to make it happen. And that's really what this program is all about as well. So, what does it take? It takes a level of interest and commitment and confidence in your own abilities. You as a mentor need to feel that you have something to give. If you don't, your mentee is going to get very little from you. It's about belief in yourself. And I want to share these with you, and I know I did it last time as well, so if you remember, if you've got that good a memory, I didn't think so. Okay. Who said this about this person? The most insipid, ridiculous play I ever saw in my life.
Okay, I do remember.
You remember that one? Who was it?
Shakespeare.
Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare. Samuel Pepys said that about Shakespeare. Ridiculous, insipid play I've ever seen in my life. That was before Shakespeare became known. Okay? Bald, skinny, and can dance a little. Fred Astaire, at his first audition. Can dance a little. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. I mean, who doesn't remember the two of them dancing? Maybe your mentees won't, but he's hopeless at composing. Beethoven's music teacher. Hopeless at composing. Wow. Too different from other juvenile books to warrant its selling.
And that must be Potter. Yeah.
No?
Oh.
That Dr. Zeus.
Dr. Zeus.
Oh, wow.
It was so different that it would never sell. I still throw Dr. Zeus all over Facebook because I just love the strangeness of it. And that one is Harry Potter, rejected by 12 publishing houses. Imagine how they felt when she knocked on number 13. Okay? And she's one of the richest women in the world. These are people that were knocked down, and the reason I'm telling you that is because they didn't stop at the first door they'd said no. They carried on, they had belief in themselves beyond what your opinion is of me. And that's not an arrogant thing. It's about an inherent, you know what, I know I can do more. You just maybe didn't see it in me, therefore let me try you, let me try you. And they carried on and carried on and carried on until something happened. It's really about giving. It's about putting your ego at the door and about going in with your heart and soul and about stepping into their lives. Not your life, their lives. With their frame of reference, with their context, with all their woes and issues, and with their lack of knowledge. And then stepping outside and saying, this is what I can bring to you. It's also about the willingness to share. And we've spoken quite a bit about that sharing, that finding knowledge. Don't think that because you've got somebody you're mentoring, that's all you have. There's this group and coming together, and I hope you are using one another to share different insights that you have, different learnings, different things that maybe you've put together that have been a wow moment for your mentee that others can take and make a wow moment for theirs as well. And remember that failures are the bridges between successes. Without failures, we seldom learn. It's in those moments that we actually debrief, we look at, we reflect, and we grow tremendously in those times. So failures are a fantastic anomaly. Encourage your mentees to share their failures very openly with you and work with them in terms of what did we learn out of this and how can we do it differently next time so that they're not afraid of failure. Because I think that's our biggest thing, is failure was drummed into us as something that was negative. You didn't fail at school, you didn't fail at home. My father's biggest thing was don't ever bring shame to our door. It was always this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And you always lived in fear of letting the world down. We've actually got to say, you know what, we all failed. It's what you do with it that makes the difference. And it's about communication. And most of the time, you should be listening, not talking, when you're mentoring. And very often as a mentor, we're so excited that we always take over their conversation. And they sit there going, yes, and they make rapid notes, and they go, yes, yes, yes. But actually what they should be what you should be doing is saying, tell me more. Why? How? Where? And let them just talk, because in that conversation, you'll be able to say, you know what, I'd like to give some thought to this, Renee. Do you mind if I come back to you on it? There's a couple of things I want to share with you now, but I actually want to reflect on it properly, because there's a whole host of things that came out of this conversation that are meaningful in a different way. And it is about an open mind to ask the right questions. A great mentor takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And sometimes you've got to push your mentees because they're lazy. Human beings are lazy, not them. Human beings are naturally lazy. And when we're pushed by somebody else, we very often at the end turn around and say, thank you for that. We don't like it at the time. But you might need to do that every now and again. And it's about getting them to dream and see the bigger picture. This comes from a John Maxwell book where he spoke about 3 guys that were doing exactly the same job. They were all pouring cement into a ditch. Yeah. Thank you. They were hoying into that thing. And all 3 of them were doing exactly the same thing, just shoveling it away and away they go. And a reporter came up and did a story on the whole project that they were doing. And he interviewed 3 of them. And he went to the first one and he said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm doing my job. What does it look like? Went to the second one. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm feeding my family. I do this job so that I can get my salary. And he went to the third one and he said, what are you doing? He donned his tools and he said, come, let me show you. We're building a home for the homeless. This is going to be the foundation. You see this big thing over here? That's the window. And the sun's going to stream through here when the children are sitting eating their food. Do you understand the conversation? 3 people doing the same job, being paid the same salary by the same manager, nothing different in their circumstances. The only difference was their mindset. They chose to see something bigger than them. and to actually believe in a purpose beyond the job they're doing, and to see the role that they were playing in the end result. Would they get the glory when it's built? Probably nobody would even say thank you. But he didn't stop that stopping him. The others, I can promise you, will be victims. And, oh, we did all the work and nobody did this. Sound familiar? Yeah. I've got lots of those at work as well. And it's this victim mentality that, oh, woe is me and the world I'm entitled to, versus seeing the bigger picture and why you're doing it. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. And you know what? I actually would say adults are like wet cement. Whatever falls on us, and be careful what you allow to fall on you, because it might not be the right thing you want to. I want to say to you, take a box and throw it out. Don't think out of it, don't think in it, don't think about a box. Just think. Because the less you think about where the box is, the more you actually have expression to really think. And get your guys to do that as well. As I mentioned earlier, it's not about any form of qualification that you have. It's really about giving up your heart and soul. And it's about your attitude and morals that make it go further.
I wasn't ready.
I have no arms and no legs, but I'm very thankful that I have my little chicken drumstick here. People freak out when they see me for the first time. It's so cool. I was at a water slide all by myself. Everyone obviously at the bottom of the slide is looking up and waiting for other people to come down, and here I come and they're freaking out. They're like, you know, like this. And I was so tempted to look at myself and go, what happened? You know? And there were times where I sort of looked at my life and thinking, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you keep on concentrating on the things that you wish you had or the things that you wish you didn't have. And you sort of forget what you do have. And there's no point, I believe, in my life where I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, because wishing won't help. But what I've seen in life are just a couple key principles, and the first thing that I've seen is to be thankful. It's hard to be thankful, man. I tell you, when I was 8 years old, I sort of summed up my life and thought, I'm never going to get married, I'm not going to have a job, I'm not going to have a life of purpose. What kind of a husband am I going to be if I can't even hold my wife's hand? It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything. Oh boy. Woo! It's freezing, I can't feel my hands. I love life. You know, so many people come and say, how come you smile so much? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. But it's very simple at the same time. You see, it's very hard to smile sometimes in life. There are things that happen that you don't know and you don't understand, and you don't know if you're going to get through it. You know, you go through your storms in life and you don't know how long this storm's going to be. And today I want to share with you some principles that I've learned in my life that you can use in yours. Being patient is beautiful. I tell you, it's the hardest thing. But I realize I may not have hands to hold my wife's hand, but when the time comes, I'll be able to hold her heart. I don't need hands to hold her heart. You know, it is scary to know how many girls have eating disorders. It is scary to know how many people are just angry at life because of their situation at home and angry at others. It's scary to know how many people actually feel like they're worth nothing. Every single girl right here, right now, I want you to know that you are beautiful. You are gorgeous just the way you are. And you boys, you're the man.
The point of showing you this is first of all, yes, to feel good about your life, but also for you to realize that you are the Nick in somebody's life. You are that inspiration. It may not be with the same story, but that is your role, is to do what he's doing with those kids, is to be that to your mentee. is to guide them with the best heart possible and the best knowledge and the wisdom that you have to lead them to a path that is better than where they are today. So the gift of giving, and why do you do it? Because quite honestly, it allows you to identify your own talents, which is fantastic. So it's growth and inspiration for both. I've done mentoring for many years, and particularly through the BWA virtual board program. And I can promise you that 9 times out of 10, I feel almost fraudulent when I walk out because I feel I gained more than I gave. And I'm sure you feel the same as a mentee. It forces you to reevaluate and just paying it forward. It's really about just giving back because the world is bigger than any one of us. And on that note, I want to just end off with something about paying it forward because I really am a believer in how to actually make a difference in other people's lives and how the smallest of things have the biggest impact and how busyness has become something that we almost honor.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the saying, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Einstein said it's every man's obligation to put back into the world at least the equivalent of what he takes out of it. Anne Frank said no one has become poor by giving. John Rockefeller, think of giving as a duty, not as a duty, but rather as a privilege. And then Winston Churchill made a living. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And I think those are some very profound statements as you look forward to your role as a mentee. So where do we draw the line? And I do want to go through this very quickly, is set boundaries up front. It's self-investment, not financial, number one. So there's no reward other than self. Be aware of becoming the friend/psychologist. That's not your role. You're there as a mentee to guide the person through. They're not to contact you at 3 in the morning when they're having a great breakup with their other partner, etc., whatever. That's not your role. Don't work for your mentee. Allow them to do the work. And as a control freak, that's a big thing for me, is to shut up and actually listen and allow them to hold the pen. And not even to make notes myself. I actually literally sit with my arms folded so that I don't go into this, okay, don't worry, I'll make the notes and send them to you. Be careful of taking ownership. It's their life. They have the right to choose whether they want your advice or not. Your ideas are merely suggestions to them. Ensure you know what their needs are so that what you give is actually relevant to what they need. And celebrate. Celebrate with them. Because believe me, they'll be having enough of a hard time with their own set of circumstances to not ever see me to celebrate. And there's a reason somewhere. Find it. Every time you sit with your mentee, find one thing that you can say, well done. I've actually got it on my agenda with my team, is my leadership team are forced to find their team doing something right every single week, and they've got to bring it to the operations meeting every single week. Because if as leaders and as mentees and mentors, we are not actually focusing on people doing things right, I guarantee you we're focusing on the opposite. And the secret? Well, it's a little bit like a bra. It's all about balance, eh? All about balance and support, girls. That used to come from the Playtex ad from many years ago. But it really is about balance and support. And Helen Hayes said the hardest years in life are those between 10 and 17. So we've got a long way to go. The challenge is to look at how you're paying it forward. Are you doing your bit? Are you actually committed to the cause that you signed up for? Are you using the intellectual capital that's in the room here today? Are you using one another and beyond their support structure as well? And just because you know somebody in the business sense doesn't mean you know them. It means you know a part of them. So think about the story before you, and think about walking in their shoes before you have comment on their lives. And there's a beautiful statement I posted on Facebook the other day. It says, just because you've read one chapter of my life doesn't mean you know the book. And it's a very, very true statement. And it's something as mentors we've got to think of when we're guiding people forward as well. To the world you may be but one, but to one you might be the world. Never, ever underestimate the significance of the role that you're playing in people's lives. Thanks very much. Thank you.